The galaxy trembled, and the universe stood still in awe, for one thing was certain: humanity, despite all its flaws, had awakened something in the cosmos that had never been seen before. A power so untamed, so unpredictable, that no civilization, no matter how advanced, could withstand it. Do you dare to venture into a story where humanity's raw potential shatters the balance of the stars? A story where, for the first time, the cosmos fears us, not for our strength, but for the madness that drives us? In a galaxy governed by ancient empires, highly advanced races, and immutable laws, humans were once viewed as nothing more than primitive, chaotic beings, a blip in the vast history of the universe. But when an unknown force starts to spread from Earth's borders, the universe begins to notice. Humanity's passion, unpredictability, and ruthless drive soon become the galaxy's most dangerous weapon. This is the story of how we, a species thought to be insignificant, turned our madness into an unstoppable force, and how, in the end, the cosmos would regret underestimating us. Earth was still considered a fledgling civilization by galactic standards, while countless other species had spread across the stars for millennia, building empires that spanned galaxies and histories deeper than time itself. Humanity had only just begun to scratch the surface of interstellar travel. Their ships were clunky by comparison, slow, loud, and inefficient. But what they lacked in finesse, they made up for with sheer determination. Colonies had sprung up across nearby star systems, rough and raw but unmistakably human, driven by a spirit that refused to be tamed. At first, the larger galactic community paid them little attention. Humans were noisy, curious, and unpredictable, a species driven by emotion and ambition more than logic or tradition. Their sudden expansion was seen as a harmless curiosity, a brief flicker of activity from a primitive world soon to settle into obscurity. But then, anomalies began to surface. Deep space patrols from neighboring civilizations started to vanish without explanation. Advanced alien ships, undoubtedly more powerful than anything Earth could field, were found drifting in silence, their crews either missing or dead, their systems fried by unknown energy surges. These weren't acts of war, nor were they the result of conventional weapons. Something else was happening. Sensors recorded impossible energy fluctuations near human colonies, bursts of raw, chaotic power that defied known physics. Probes sent to investigate either returned with corrupted data or didn't return at all. Rumors began to spread among alien species, of ghost ships appearing in the void, of human eyes glowing with unnatural light, of entire planets whispering strange things across subspace frequencies. Humanity, unaware of the full impact their presence was having on the galaxy, pushed onward. Their drive was insatiable. They weren't seeking dominance. They were seeking understanding. But their search, powered by emotion and blind curiosity, had unknowingly begun to bend the very fabric of the universe around them. And somewhere, deep in the cold silence between the stars, the galaxy began to realize these beings from Earth were not just expanding, they were waking up. And what was waking inside them wasn't normal. It wasn't natural. It wasn't sane. The first formal contact came not through war or desperation, but through a simple transmission, calm, diplomatic, and laced with the quiet arrogance of an ancient power. The Zalrathi, one of the oldest and most dominant species in the galaxy, initiated the conversation. Their empire had spanned tens of thousands of years, their technology so advanced it was closer to magic than science. From the spiral arms of the outer rim to the glowing cores of supermassive stars, the Zalrathi ruled not with brutality, but with an unshakable certainty in their superiority. When they noticed human expansion, they didn't feel threatened. They felt mildly intrigued, like scholars observing an insect build a nest with surprising efficiency. When their shimmering envoy ships arrived in orbit above the human frontier colony of Lisa 9, they expected reverence. Instead, they found humans curious, informal, and utterly unafraid. The Zalrathi offered what they always offered to emerging species: protection, in the form of a peace treaty, one that would fold humanity into the galactic order as a minor, harmless participant. But something in the human response unsettled them. Not the words, they were diplomatic, but the tone, the laughter, the questions that followed. Humans didn't ask about regulations or rules. They asked about the stars the Zalrathi hadn't explored, about the limits of their minds, about what lay outside the universe. Then came the accident, or what the Zalrathi would later call the awakening. During a joint research mission on a Zalrathi orbital lab, a group of human scientists, ignoring multiple warnings, began experimenting with a piece of forbidden tech, a dark energy singularity core. The Zalrathi had long known its potential and its danger, but humans didn't believe in limits. They touched it, they connected with it, and something responded. The event was brief but catastrophic. Reality around the lab bent and twisted. Several Zalrathi perished instantly, not from explosions, but from something else. Their minds collapsed under a pressure they couldn't comprehend. Time warped. One human was seen split across multiple moments, existing in a state of pure, screaming awareness. Another spoke in a language that hadn't existed until that moment. When the event ended, the lab was gone. So were the rules of physics that governed the space it once occupied. The Zalrathi panicked. They had encountered threats before. Rival empires, rogue AI, ancient spaceborne predators. But nothing like this. This wasn't a weapon or a tactic. It was potential. Human potential, now unleashed, unfiltered, and uncontrolled. A latent power buried deep in their biology, or perhaps their madness. It was as if, by pushing too far and too fast, humans had torn open a part of reality no other species dared touch, and it had responded only to them. From that moment, the Zalrathi no longer saw humanity as an insect. They saw them as a paradox, impossibly young, impossibly dangerous, and above all, impossibly free. In the weeks and months that followed the Singularity incident, the nature of humanity began to change. At first, it was subtle. Survivors of the event reported strange dreams, bursts of insight, and moments where time seemed to slow down around them. Scientists on Earth dismissed these claims as stress responses or hallucinations, until patterns emerged. Individuals far from the incident site began to report similar symptoms. Then came the first public demonstration. A colonist on Ganymede lifted a 10-ton bulkhead with a thought. Another, under observation, folded a sheet of space-time into itself, creating a momentary rift that led to somewhere else. A soldier in orbit over Proxima Centauri blinked and reappeared inside his ship's sealed engine core, unharmed and dazed. These weren't isolated mutations. Something had shifted in the species. It was as if the Singularity had sent a signal, not just through space, but through human consciousness itself. A dormant frequency had been activated. Powers once confined to myth and fiction, telepathy, telekinesis, even reality manipulation, were now being recorded under rigorous scientific observation. But what unnerved alien researchers most was that these abilities weren't learned through training. They emerged under pressure, under emotion, fear, rage, desperation. Human feelings amplified the effects. The more intense the emotion, the more powerful and unpredictable the results. The Zalrathi watched from afar, growing increasingly disturbed. They had always been the caretakers of galactic stability, the arbiters of what knowledge was too dangerous to pursue. But humanity had smashed through those barriers not through centuries of controlled evolution, but through reckless instinct. Worse still, the humans did not stop. Where other species might have quarantined or forbidden these developments, humanity embraced them. Academies were formed to study the powers. Rogue factions took to experimenting with raw energy and dimensional shifts. Whispers began to circulate of humans who could see into alternate timelines, or worse, pull things from them. As word of humanity's evolution spread, so did their influence. Smaller civilizations, long oppressed or marginalized by the old powers, saw in humanity a symbol of chaos, but also hope, a force that could topple the stagnant order. Some aligned with Earth, willingly or in awe. Others feared contagion, that human potential might infect them. 2. Conflicts broke out not between planets, but within them, as populations divided, to resist humanity, or to join them. The Zalrathi, once revered, now found their authority questioned by their own allies. It wasn't conquest, it was contagion. Humanity's emergence wasn't marked by armies invading or fleets conquering. It was marked by change, spreading like fire through dry galactic grass. Empires that had stood for millennia began to crack. Ancient treaties unraveled. Prophets among long-forgotten species began quoting human literature. The universe had long relied on stability. Now it faced something far more dangerous, a species that thrived in chaos, and worse, grew stronger because of it. As humanity's abilities spread and intensified, the rest of the galaxy was forced to confront a terrifying truth. Humans did not operate by the same logic as everyone else. The known laws of physics, once considered absolute across all intelligent life, bent or outright broke. Around them, human experiments would yield different results when repeated by alien scientists. Cause and effect seemed negotiable in their presence. Time, energy, even matter itself behaved differently when influenced by human will. It wasn't magic, it wasn't divine. It was something worse, unpredictable. What the galaxy had relied upon as constants, humanity treated as suggestions. What made this worse was that their powers weren't cold or calculated. They were driven by emotion, raw, chaotic, and untamed. Anger could collapse a gravity well. Grief could tear open dimensional seams. Love, of all things, had been recorded amplifying neural resonance in a way that allowed group telepathy across light years. No other species had ever wielded emotion as fuel. Most had evolved past it, suppressing or regulating their impulses to avoid instability. But for humans, emotion wasn't a hindrance. It was the source of their strength. And the stronger they became, the more erratic, passionate, and human they remained. This duality became both a marvel and a nightmare. The same people who could heal with a thought might level a city if provoked. Human leaders themselves could not always control the outcomes of their gifted citizens. What was once labeled as genius or madness blurred into one and the same. Even among humans, the line between sanity and instability thinned. Some chose isolation, fearing what they might become. Others embraced the chaos entirely, forming cults of transcendence or rebellion that saw instability as evolution. The galactic order, already trembling, began to fracture under the weight of this uncertainty. Alliances strained as old empires debated what to do with this volatile force. Some called for war, others for containment, and still others for cooperation. But humanity refused to be treated as a threat or a pet. They demanded equality, not in hierarchy, but in acknowledgement. They rejected the ancient empire's carefully layered systems of control, calling them cages dressed as civilization. And more dangerously, their message resonated with countless oppressed species who had suffered under the calm tyranny of order. No model of diplomacy or warfare worked. Negotiations failed because humans didn't follow protocol. Battles failed because humans didn't fight to win. They fought to understand, or feel, or break free. Every engagement became a gamble. Every attempt to predict them ended in confusion. The universe had always feared monsters, invasions, or extinction events, but what it had never anticipated was this. A species so unbound by reason, so full of reckless hope and violent brilliance, that its very existence unraveled the certainty upon which the cosmos stood. In trying to understand humans, the galaxy went mad itself. The breaking point came not with a declaration, but with a spark. An event so minor by galactic standards it should have gone unnoticed. A skirmish on a border world. A human science vessel accused of trespassing. A Zalrathi outpost responding with force. What followed was a retaliation not sanctioned by any human government, but executed by individuals so powerful and unpredictable that entire fleets vanished in minutes. The Zalrathi demanded accountability. Humanity responded not with apology, but with defiance. The message was clear. We will not be controlled. And with that, the first shots of the Great War echoed across the stars. But this was no ordinary war. It wasn't about territory, resources, or power. It was about understanding and identity. The old powers fought to maintain the structure of a universe they believed they had mastered. Humanity fought to discover what they truly were, even if it meant burning everything down in the process. Battles were not just fought in space or on planets. They unfolded in broken timelines, across psychic dreamscapes, within quantum fields twisted by emotion. Entire armadas were lost in moments of sheer unpredictability. Some ships changed course mid-battle, not due to strategy, but because their human pilots felt something. Human commanders became legends, both feared and worshipped. They made decisions that, on paper, were suicidal, yet somehow led to overwhelming victories. A fleet outnumbered 10-1 would surge forward with no plan, no formation, just raw fury and gut instinct, and the enemy would collapse, not understanding how they lost. One general, infamous across 3 sectors, won an entire campaign without firing a shot, simply by talking to the enemy until they switched sides. Another opened a rift into an alternate timeline to borrow weapons that should not exist, laughing as he turned the tide of battle with machines built by no known science. Allies of humanity struggled to keep up, often unsure whether they were fighting beside heroes or madmen. Enemies descended into paranoia, fearing infiltration not by spies but by ideas, human ideas, that spread like wildfire, destabilizing discipline and sowing doubt. Protocols failed, predictions failed. War, once a predictable machine of tactics and numbers, became something poetic and horrifying, ruled by chaos, creativity, and madness. What terrified the galaxy most wasn't just that humans were winning. It was that they didn't seem to care about winning. They sought meaning, evolution, experience. For many humans, War became not a necessity, but a crucible, a place to push themselves past every boundary. And in doing so, they evolved even faster. New abilities emerged in combat, born from trauma and adrenaline. A dying human soldier once reversed the entropy of his own body out of sheer refusal to die, terrifying both sides of the conflict. The Great War raged not like a storm, but like a fever dream. And through it all, one truth became impossible to deny. Logic could not defeat them, numbers could not overwhelm them, and reason could not contain them. Humanity was no longer a species. It had become a force, irrational, unpredictable, and unstoppable. The galaxy burned with possibility and ruin. The Great War had reached a scale that defied comprehension. Entire star systems reduced to hushed nebulae, timelines shattered and overwritten, laws of reality warped beyond recognition. At the heart of it all stood humanity, no longer the underdog, no longer misunderstood, but something else entirely. They had climbed to a precipice where no other species had ever stood, the edge of ultimate power. And yet, that very power trembled in their hands, not because they lacked control, but because they questioned whether they should wield it. The other civilizations watched in awe and dread. Some begged for peace, others for annihilation. Many simply withdrew, unable to comprehend what humanity had become. The Zalrathi, once gods in all but name, now cowered behind fractured alliances and broken certainties. They had tried to tame humanity, reason with them, contain them, and failed at every turn. For humans did not move in straight lines. They spiraled forward with a madness that made them divine. And now, that madness threatened to reshape the cosmos itself. Humanity stood divided. There were those who believed this was their destiny, to ascend beyond mortality, to wield the chaos and become something greater than species or soul. They spoke of tearing down the veil of reality and rewriting existence in humanity's image. Others, equally powerful, looked into the abyss and saw not destiny, but a mirror. They feared what they were becoming. Not saviors, not conquerors, but a fire that could consume all things, including themselves. The powers they now held were immense, but so was the cost. Their emotions, once their strength, now twisted dangerously close to collapse. Sanity frayed, empathy blurred. The brilliance of humanity risked becoming self-destruction masquerading as progress. As the final confrontation loomed, it was no longer a battle between humans and the galaxy. It was a choice within humanity itself. Would they use their chaos to liberate, to inspire, to evolve the universe into something free and alive? Or would they spiral into ruin, taking everything with them in a blaze of pride and unchecked hunger? The stars seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy, ancient and weary, stood at a crossroads. One path led to rebirth, the other to extinction. In the silence before the final strike, one truth pulsed louder than war drums or weapon fire. The universe could no longer ignore the question humanity had become. They were not like the others. They were not meant to fit within the lines. The reckoning was not about who would win. It was about what would remain when the dust settled, whether the cosmos would embrace the madness or be consumed by it. In the final hours of the war, the galaxy stood still, not from peace, but from exhaustion and fear. The great empires had fallen silent, their fleets shattered, their leaders dead or disappeared. The fabric of reality itself had begun to ripple with unnatural frequency, as if the universe was reacting not to weapons, but to will. And at the center of it all was humanity, battered, fractured, but burning brighter than ever. What began as survival had become something much more, a metamorphosis that neither they nor the galaxy could fully understand. But just as victory seemed within reach, or destruction imminent, something else emerged. A presence older than any known civilization, hidden beyond space, dormant beyond time. The galactic ancients had whispered of it, a shadow beyond the edge of understanding, the null singularity, an intelligence, or force that consumed not just matter, but meaning itself. It did not conquer, it erased. And now, awakened by the chaos humanity had unleashed, it was stirring once more, drawn to the instability and raw power of this newborn force of sentient unpredictability. Humanity, for all their brilliance and madness, now faced something even they couldn't laugh at or overpower through emotion. For the first time, they were not the storm, but the fragile light against it. And so the final question crystallized, more terrifying than any battle cry. Would humans fall into their own chaos, unleashing their power blindly until there was nothing left? Or would they become what the galaxy now desperately needed, a force wild enough, unchained enough, to challenge the coming dark? All eyes turned to Earth and its scattered colonies, not as invaders, not as rebels, but as the last unpredictable variable in a dying equation. In boardrooms, on battlefields, in forgotten temples of dying worlds, the galaxy waited, watched, and whispered the same truth. The ones we feared may now be our only chance. And humanity remained silent, watching the stars, laughing at the edge of madness, holding a decision no one else could make. Not with logic, not with prophecy, but with that singular, burning essence only they possessed. Not order, not peace, but chaos woven with meaning, emotion forged into evolution. The end had come, but whether it was the end of everything, or the beginning of something terrifyingly new, would be decided not by reason but by the most underestimated force in the universe, the insanity of humanity. And so, the tale of humanity, born from dust, driven by wonder, and tempered in madness, reaches the edge of the known. No one, not even the wisest among the ancients, can say what comes next, for what lies ahead is not written in prophecy or bound by law. It is chaos incarnate, a future shaped by those who were never supposed to matter, never supposed to rise. But they did, not because they were the strongest, or the smartest, but because they never stopped pushing, breaking, dreaming, and defying. The galaxy watches, breath held, caught between fear and hope, because in the end, it is not logic that will decide the fate of everything. It is choice, humanity's choice, to fall or to rise, to destroy or to become the impossible. Their story is not over. In truth, it has only just begun. This is not the end. This is the moment before the leap. Like if the chaos thrilled you. Comment to share your theories. Will humanity save the galaxy or unravel it? Subscribe for more high-concept sci-fi stories where the rules don't apply. Share this tale with fellow fans of Humans Are Insane and let the madness spread across the stars. The universe is watching. Are you ready for what comes next?